What is up? It is the Fit Gear Hunter, and tonight we are going to talk about the brand new Garmin Forerunner 255, 255S, and 255 Music, and the 955 and 955 Solar. I don't have the devices on hand. They have been ordered as of 3 hours ago, and so I will have them overnight whenever that becomes possible. But I'm going to try to put as many pictures up here as I can. But as someone in PR once told me, it is better to be imperfect but on time rather than to be perfect and late when you're communicating information that is just hitting, the press release floor. So I literally was able to get a contact at Garmin to provide me some stats and details. I had no previous information, no contact, no idea other than the rumor mills for what information was coming out of when the devices were going to be released. And I just got this information literally 3 hours ago. So I'm putting this video together. So if all the pictures don't come up, that's just going to be it. But we're going to dive into the most important thing. And one thing I want to say out of the gate is that this is a significant release. These watches have significant feature and benefit differences from previous released watches and from other watches on the market at a different and lower price point than we have seen previously. So in the CrossFit world, so this, my channel is primarily focused on testing devices and tracking devices for CrossFit and high intensity interval training. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more versus all the running, swimming, and biking videos that are out there. But I am going to tell you now, prior to even testing the 255, this is going to be the premier fitness tracking watch for the CrossFit and high intensity interval community. If you want the most comprehensive all-in-one solution in a reasonably affordable watch, definitely not cheap, but reasonably affordable watch, the Garmin 255 hits the bill on every possible aspect. Every possible aspect. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So what are we going to do in the video tonight? We're going to talk about, I want to be emphatic. Secondly, let me say this emphatically. The 955 is probably the most feature-rich, power-packed offering for the price than we've ever seen in the industry. In my opinion, with the feature set it comes with for the price that it is selling, and we'll talk about that in a second, the most power-packed, feature-rich device for the price than we have ever seen in the industry. Hopefully that's emphatic enough for your listening ears. So, going into the video, we're going to talk about the new features. We're going to talk about the same features. We're going to talk about the differences between the 955 and the 255, just to talk about primarily. I am not going to focus on all the variations. So on the 255, you have the bigger regular 255, and then you have the 255 Music. And then you have a 255S, which is a smaller 255, and a smaller 255 Music. And then you have the 955, and you have the 955 Solar. I'm going to shoot up the middle. We're going to talk about the 255 Music, because that's just like the fully featured 255, and we're going to talk about the 955 non-solar. We're not looking at the extra $100, and I'll give you my opinion on that. So we're going to talk about the difference between the two of those devices. We're going to compare them. I'm going to tell you about why these features and benefits versus all the other devices on the market today are better and different and improved, and why this is also a trend line for Garmin beginning to amplify and continue to evolve and improve their offering in a way that makes you likely should be on the bandwagon. Again, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about all the, the Chorus, Polar, Suunto, Whoop. We're going to talk about what the differences are so you can watch that and just focus on your product line that you had questions about. We're going to talk to you about whether you should upgrade previous Garmin renditions, previous Garmin watches, and the answer is likely just going to be yes across the board, but I want to tell you why and some of those things, and then we're just going to talk in summary. So, all that out of the way, the 255 Music, which is like the full version, is $400, $399. It's the same price as the 245 Music was 2.5 years ago. What inflation problem? And then the 955 is $500. The 955 feature set, and wait till we hear some of these details, is $500. It is $100 and $150 cheaper, depending on what your preference is with the LTE, for the newer version that's power packed and pretty direct line comparable to the Phoenix 7, just a different casing structure. So $400, $500, $100. Whenever I talk about these feature differences, $100 difference separates these two between the 255 and the 955, the standard and the music. So when we talk about these, think about that when you're thinking about what do I like about these. There's a $100 difference, and we're going to break it down. So what are the new features? And I'm just talking about the baseline features that would probably help those in the CrossFit and high-intensity interval community. I might not hit some of all the details with some of the running or cycling things, but I'm going to hit on most of them. The biggest feature benefit for me is that both watches have a 1.3-inch screen. All previous releases, everything in the whole lineup in the universe and the world as we know it is a 1.2-inch screen. All watches that we see on most of the market today, the Coroses, the Polars, the Suuntos, 1.2-inch screen. I hope I said it correctly the first time. All other basic manufacturers, 1.2-inch screen. So 1.2 to 1.3 might not sound like a lot, but it's like an 18% increase in screen space. What can you do with that screen space? Well, let's just leave it to Garmin to figure out how they're going to evolve and tweak some of those things. The evolution from the Instinct 1 to the Instinct 2, just looking at screen capabilities, was a huge difference between the capabilities between the two. Number two, it's got multi-band GNS, so you can have multiple satellites locked in to both the 255 and the 955, obviously. They both are offering some incredibly exciting health benefits. And I'm going to say this out of the gate because there's maybe a lot of naysayers that use HRV for training, different things like that. They say, well, I think Garmin is going to figure these things out, even if it's not perfect out of the gate. They have, number one, what's called a training readiness evaluation, which takes your workouts, your sleep, your heart rate variability, and that is true heart rate variability now, as we'll talk about in a second, and talks about whether you're ready to go into rigorous training or where you're at for that training session today. Number three, they have whatever this is, the next in the lineup. They have heart rate variability status. So it's a summary of your heart rate variability score or heart rate variability tracking over the course of a night's sleep. Previously, we have body battery. Body battery is tracking your overall stress. It is a variation. If you go on the First Beat site, it's a variation of heart rate variability tracking, but it's not direct heart rate variability tracking in the same way we would know it with like a Whoop or another device that looks specifically for a heart rate variability number. So you can't extract your heart rate variability statistical number previously, and now you can. Now it's going to have a summary of your heart rate variability through the night's sleep. And then what's that going to give you? That's going to tie in now to what's called a morning report. And the morning report, all these ideas are just so awesome what they're coming up with. It's a summary of multiple pieces of information. It's your weather outlook for the day. It's your workout training calendar or what workout recommendations they're making. It's your sleep score, heart rate variability analysis over the course of your sleep, and it is customizable where you can move and add different features you want to see in your morning report. So if you just sort of skip to some of the watches that do maybe some version of that, so the Polar family of watches does nightly recharge, where when it finally finishes up, it's got your nervous system rejuvenation and your sleep rejuvenation, and that gives you one sort of readiness for the day. So Garmin's going to mimic that, except for make it more enhanced and evolved. If you take Whoop, which gives you a recovery score for the day, like you were this recovered based on primarily, and if you look at the four metrics, it tracks heart rate variability, sleep, respiration rate, and resting heart rate. It overweights everything towards heart rate variability, where your heart rate variability fell for last night versus some moving averages. So this morning report is going to do the same thing, or it's going to do something similar, and I apologize I don't have more pictures or more details of it. So the other things that it's going to do is provide running power from the wrist. Now, you're going to have a pod. So I don't know if the running community is going to feel like, that's not true. You can't just put the watch on and go out and get your running power from the wrist for your run. You have to have the old school, running pod or the HRM Pro. So when you look at the feature set of new benefits when it comes to wellness, you have the training readiness, heart rate variability status, so a nightly evaluation of heart rate variability, on top of First Beat's analytical sleep score and sleep analytics when it comes to stages and features like that. And there's been reviewers that have analytically or scientifically proven that maybe the stages weren't right. But I'm telling you, as a user of many, many watches, the sleep score takes into account the right factors and gives me clear and useful information, more so than I have found in other watches. So it is taking into account the factor weightings that I think are useful information. So now they're adding to it heart rate variability, like true heart rate variability. So on top of these things, these are 255, 955 collective, and we'll get into some nuanced details in a second. There's the 955, and their 955 has other features. They have all the topological maps, all the maps. Let's think back to when the Fenix 7 was released and the Epix was released. What different versions offer different maps? Well, let's talk about it, shall we? The Fenix 7 standard, non-fancier version, didn't have all the topological maps. It didn't have, you had to upload and you had to pick which ones you want. I only want North America because all of them couldn't be on there. Same thing with the Epix standard versus the Epix Sapphire and Titanium model. You couldn't get all the topological maps. This has all of the topo maps. The 955, how much does it cost? Oh yeah, it's $500. All the topological maps. I might even not be saying that correctly because, you know, again, we don't do outdoorsy reviews. So all those same things. And then now looking specifically, if you were just going to really compare the 255 with the 955. So the 955, and this gets into some of the spec differences. You can see some of these specs. I'm going to lean in because there's a list. 1 millimeter bigger, so 46.5 on the 955 and 45.6 on the 255. Those are both sweet spots. It's still smaller than the original 245, and you get 1.3 inch screen, which would obviously be a reduction of the big hated bezel in the original 945. The 945 over the 255 music, or 955 over the 255 music has 4 times more music storage because it just has a whopping 32 gigabytes on it, so it has all those topo maps built in. You can, 4 times more music. Think about the battery life of these. Again, this is crazy to me. So now the 255 has a 14-day battery life. 2 weeks, that's awesome. Obviously, I'm going to jack the backlight way up because I like super bright watches. The 955 standard has 15 days. And if you get the solar model, you'll have 20 days of standby time. Now, that's not the same in GPS usage. The 255 will last just straight up GPS single satellite usage 30 hours, whereas the 955 will last 42 hours and then I think 50 hours with the solar edition. What are you going to lose on the 255 over the 955? Heat and altitude acclimation. So you won't get that if you're changing, if you're going to multiple different distances and you're going to different, heat environments. You will not get the new real-time stamina. So, oh no, gosh, in the CrossFit community, that doesn't matter at all. So I'm not watching, none of us are going on any kind of long runs. If we have to run 400 meters in intervals in the middle of a workout, that feels like a long run. The Murph workout with 1 mile at the start and at the end felt like a long run. So real-time stamina is for people that go on like 5-hour bike rides to see how much depletion, to be aware. So that's on the 955, but not on the 255. You don't get the Strava Live segments or the Garmin Live segments. One thing I almost skipped that's on both of these watches, and it doesn't matter as much about the 955, but it's on the 255, which is a question on most of these forums in the rumor mill, is it has Garmin Pay. The 255 now has Garmin Pay. That's a big addition. How much more is it? Oh, it's the same price as the original. Oh gosh, that's interesting. That's fantastic. So the 955 is going to give you the touch screen. Now I will say, as a user of the Epix or somebody that has had the Epix for a while, the touch screen with the maps is genius. So you don't have the maps on the 255, so you're not going to cry your eyes because you don't need the touch screen because everything else is just button presses. In my opinion, you don't quite need the touch screen except for on the maps, but then it becomes an awesome experience with the maps themselves. You have golf on the 955, but you don't have maps, so you're not going to have it on the 255. You have Climb Pro. The Climb Pro just knows where you're going, where you're running, and so it tells you like how much more hill or mountain you have to climb because it's got maps. Hello. You have maps. The MTB grit and flow features are based, I believe, on the mapping, something within the mapping and the trails. So you're not going to have mountain biking analytics like you would on the 255. So the 255 doesn't have that, and 955 does. Advanced cycling dynamics, I don't even know what that means, but I know it was listed on the website. quick fit versus quick release. So the 255 is going to be quick release. The 955 is going to be quick fit. We all love a good quick fit. I mean, quick fit is just awesome. It's got a fatter bar, a little bit more stable. And now let's really talk about the list. Oh gosh, this is going to take some time. The list of differences between the 955 and the Fenix 7. $800. How much is the 955 again? Base model, non-solar? Oh, it's $500. So for $300, what do we get for the Fenix 7? And I tried to look through a lot of the spec sheets, and here's the list. 10 ATM versus 5 ATM, so if you're a scuba diver. Metal bezel, if you like metal, you like heavy, tough things, and no ski maps. So the big fancy ski maps, if you're a big outdoor skier, it's got all sorts of fancy ski maps on the Fenix 7. And that's it. So step right up, folks. For $300, you can get yourself a stainless steel casing and some ski maps, and you can dive to the depths of 10 ATM versus 5 ATM. Have at it. I mean, I love the Fenix 7. I love the look of the all stainless steel. I have not been able to really overcome and desire to wear the 955 because of the plastic feel. But now that it's 1.3-inch screen, it's not going to be much of a battle for me. So those are the primary features. Those are, it's going to still have all the same things. The advanced training analytics, which includes training load specifics, training load type, which includes your 7-day load tracking, which includes a balance between whether you're highly aerobic, lightly aerobic, or anaerobic in your training percentages over time. It's going to have still the improved recovery time. So again, Coros offers a version of recovery time. Whoop doesn't offer a recovery time. Polar doesn't offer a recovery time. Suunto offers recovery time, but it's usually literally 50% of what it should be. But Garmin's recovery time is not like, hey, you worked out really hard right now. It's, hey, you worked out really hard right now, but you didn't sleep very well and your heart rate variability is a little bit off, so we're going to add a couple hours to that. Or, hey, you slept great. You really took a nap this afternoon. We're going to deplete your recovery time by a couple hours. Advanced recovery time. So all those same features are now included. Plus, the new development with the Connect IQ store, third-party apps are going to get better and better and better and better and better. I think about this when I'm thinking about Garmin and why it's not bad to be a consideration on the bandwagon for Garmin is because Garmin is making all these watches, but oh, by the way, they're like the inventors of GPS trackers. And oh, by the way, they have a whole department of aviation where they can fly a plane at a distance and land like a huge aircraft onto the ground from their computer. And they have all sorts of hunting and fishing computers, and they have, all the high-end yachts of the world have the Garmin stuff on them. So they're so far advanced in some of the scientific evolution that even if they don't quite get the heart rate variability maybe perfect compared to what this program says, it's still going to get better, and it's still going to be better than what you're going to get, at least in the current offerings. And I'm just, I come from an engineering background, so I'm like an analytically minded person, and when there's something that's analytically just has the right stuff, I'm not going to, I didn't get any information from Garmin. I bought these watches like 3 hours ago with my own money. I don't have any perks. I did get this information 3 hours before a press release, but I don't have any attachment. They don't give me stuff. And so I just think, I'm still telling you these things because these are just factual statements. This is just a statement of truth. So let's talk about it as it compares and make sure, as it compares to some of the other watches in the market. Coros doesn't compare. So if you take the 255 versus the Pace 2, the Pace 2 doesn't have any, at least to me, it's just got a bunch of lines for your sleep analysis, and maybe they just did some updates for the, some of the calculation of the sleep periods, but no sleep score, no heart rate variability, no wellness recovery, all that sort of stuff. In order to get their training analytics to activate, you have to run for 300 minutes. And if you tell a CrossFit person, you can, here's a watch, but you have to go take it out over the next 42 days, you got to take it on 300 minutes of running, they're not going to buy the watch. The Apex Pro does not compete anymore. No offense, again, no in-depth sleep analysis, no directionable, actionable information from the sleep analysis, and all the same sort of stats. You have to run this much to get the training analytics. Same thing with the Vertix 2. Now, the Vertix 2 is a big, cool-looking watch. It is just a cool-looking watch that is now $100 more than the 955. But it has maps, but they're not actionable maps. They're like a picture map. They can see where you are on the GPS and they can line it up with the picture of the map, but it can't say like, hey, could you guide me to the local Starbucks? Well, that's what the maps on the 255 do. You can plot a course on the 255 and you say like, at 5 miles, I want to treat myself to a latte. Can you find a coffee shop? And it does something like that. But you can find areas of interest on your path. You can stop and just look at areas of interest nearby you. If you're on a bike ride, you can say, oh, let me pull up the map and just figure out where, the In-N-Out burger is so I can kill my diet mid-workout. So all those things are capable. So it does not compete. Coros does not compete. And if you own a Vertix 2, obviously you're going to lose the quality of the look. Then you should look at the Fenix 7 because the Fenix 7 has all these things and a little better. So the Polar line of watches, the Polar Pacer and Pacer Pro. If you might compare that head to head with the 255, I just released the video for the Pacer. $200 watch. That is an excellent watch for the CrossFit and high intensity interval community. It's an excellent watch because we don't need running stuff. We just need some of the training analytics, but it is a simple version. So if you are limited to $215 and that's all your budget can afford, that's an awesome solution. I wouldn't even look further down the Garmin lineup. I just go like Polar Pacer. But at the same time, if you look at the running specifics and you're a runner or you just like more advanced specifics and you have more than $200, definitely the 255 all day long. Not a competition there. Same thing with the Grit X and the Vantage V2. The Pacer Original, the Pacer Pro is such a unique offering, and there's $200 or $300 cheaper than the Grit X Pro and the Vantage V2, but the feature set differences are not that broad at all. Other than the casing, you can have a stainless casing or you can have aluminum casing on the Vantage V2, but other than that, those are the differences. So I don't think at all the Vantage V2 and the Grit X compete against the 955 with full mapping and touchscreen and routable courses and all these training analytic pieces to it. Suunto, you have the Suunto 5 Peak versus the 255, the Suunto 9 or Suunto 9 Peak. I don't count the 5 regular because I think it's just got like a super outdated body design, but the Suunto 9 regular still looks kind of cool. But the 5 Peak, it does have some of first speed analytics, but it's not as advanced, it's not as in-depth. The charts are way more simplified. The sleep analytics are not there. And, like I said, you get Training Peaks, training load analytics, and I feel like that's some good stuff there. I've said it in multiple videos. I feel like that's some quality training load analytics, but it's harder to understand, and that is really the only feature that Suunto is offering, in my opinion, right now, because the sleep is missing, and the resources does compare to Body Battery, but now we have all these other features offered in the 255 and the 955. Suunto 9 versus the 955 doesn't compete at all. I mean, I hate to say that, but does not compete at all. If you want it, you have unlimited maps. You have maps of everything on the 955. You have a touchscreen. You have the capabilities are just much, much higher, and it's much more advanced of a watch. You could take some of the off watches like the Huawei GT3, which is a beautiful watch with like a 5 to 6 day battery life if you use the always on display. That's a long time. And both of the 955, 255, they don't offer AMOLED versions. We're just gonna have to wait another year, I think, for AMOLED to come down that far. But the Huawei GT3 and GT3 Pro have a really, from what analytically, a very good heart rate sensor on it, but they have their own training load calculations, and they mimic Garmin with the aerobic and anaerobic, but at the same time, it's still not quite evolved. The sleep, not very useful, in my opinion. The quality of the analytics in the sleep and the actionable sleep score doesn't really compare, and so you're getting a very distant manufacturer watch, and you can't even buy it in the US. The Apple Watch is unique in itself because it is a computer on your wrist. And so you have capabilities on the smartwatch side of things that is not at all competitive with 955 and 255. It's just like, that's a whole different type of watch. You're wearing a computer on your wrist versus having, dial-up internet on your wrist. And so it's not the same when the smartwatch capabilities and the Apple Watch is unique in the sense that it has really the best sensors on the planet. Nobody's arguing that the heart rate sensor on the Apple Watch, but you have to tie in your own version of 15 different apps to make this experience as comprehensive as you're getting out of the box for $400 in the 955 and $500. $500 for the 955. I don't know if I just said $400 for the 255. $500 for the 955. $500. That's just crazy to me. That is a big deal. The Samsung Galaxy Watch is dead to me because they don't talk to iPhones anymore and they didn't really communicate it with the general public. And then what do you have with Whoop? Now Whoop is a whole different animal, but since I'm talking the CrossFit and high intensity interval world community in general, Whoop is something people ask about all the time. So Whoop gives you a summary of your heart rate variability and a readiness score. It tells you your like final score, your final heart rate variability number. That's what you get. You don't see all the data. You can't look at to see like, what was it at midnight and 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. They just say like, here's your heart rate variability. And they overweight the end scores, but you can't get to the data. And it gives you a readiness, but it stops there. So if you slept well that night, and then at 8:01 when you woke up, you heard the worst news of your life, and you spent the entire rest of the day having a blood pressure, panic, freak out, highest stress level, the Whoop would not know. It could maybe tell you the next day if your 6 a.m. heart rate variability reading before you woke up was that different from the 6 a.m. reading the day before. But in the 24 hours between them, the Whoop doesn't have any idea other than your heart and the strain that you undergo. So it can tell if you're beating 150 minutes, beats a minute because you're under that kind of stress, but it doesn't evaluate the physiological different aspects of stress on your day. Garmin does. And now Garmin is giving you this daily readiness report and training readiness report, and it's only going to get better from there. So I look at Whoop as it has scientific backing with the way they're weighting the heart rate variability, but it's one-dimensional versus now Garmin is starting to look towards three-dimensional. So they're now going to give you the heart rate variability. They were already giving you all-day body battery, which is extracted from some version of heart rate variability, and it does show. I'll tell you one thing for sure. Other reviewers have done like a head-to-head comparison of onset sickness or COVID when you wear a Whoop and when you wear a Garmin. And in both devices, you can see the impact of COVID on both. But what I have always found, and what is different from not experiencing on Whoop, is that you're waiting till your next 8 a.m. reading, 8 a.m. readiness summary. On the body battery, I swear to you, you can see, and you can see your sickness coming and you can see it going. You could take it almost like a microcosm of if you just drank a lot of alcohol. If you drank a lot of alcohol, those of you in the Garmin world know that your body battery is going to start to tank. It's not going to rejuvenate while you sleep. But then like 3 to 5 hours into your sleep, you do start rejuvenating. You can see the alcohol leave your body or get burned up in your body or not hold back your heart rate variability or not hold back your stress, which is what they calculated on. So I don't think that Whoop has the upper hand on full tilt calculations of heart rate variability. And now I think Garmin will take it. So I don't think there's that much competition there. So that's Whoop. Now back to Garmin, back to the base models. Now, if thinking about the other things, if you own the Instinct 2, the screen is so much better on the 255, the 1.3 inch full tilt screen versus the pixelated monochromatic. So there's a lot of differences there. You are probably going to get all the same feature set eventually to the Instinct 2. If you own the original 245, sell it immediately on eBay before the rest of the world catches up to the 255 release. Again, if you own the original 245, and I loved it, I had it, sell it immediately before the rest of the world on eBay catches up to the fact that 255 is out, because it is a definite upgrade there. You don't get a sleep score. They are upgrading the algorithm on the sleep tracking, but you have an older heart rate sensor and not going to get the morning report and the readiness reports and all these different things. And so you get a 1.3 inch screen versus 1.2, a much more accurate heart rate sensor when it comes to if you just don't have a chest strap and you have to wear the watch for that time. They're much more upgraded there, and the sleep analytics are much more quality on top of these reports that are now coming on the 255. If you're in the 235, yes, don't even question it. All these wellness and physiological metrics have just been introduced since the 255, not on there. The 755 is sort of a questionable one because 75's got a good housing, but it's 1.2 inch screen. It doesn't have the maps, so that compares to the 255. It'll probably get some of these readiness things in the morning report and things like that. But it has the older heart rate sensor, and so you have to be more dependent if you own the 755 and you're doing CrossFit high intense interval training on using a chest strap or an armband. You cannot rely on the heart rate built into the 755 because it is much more faulty. The new Elevate 4.0 that's on the 255 is definitely much better. It's only like 85% correct, so you're missing some. And then you look at the original 945, the original big 945. Definitely. If you own the 945 LTE, then yes, I would consider upgrading because I think I would not consider upgrading. Good Lord. See, I'm getting tired because it's just been a constant. This is a single take because of time. So I would not consider upgrading the 945 LTE to the 955. Now you get a smaller screen on the 45 LTE with the 1.2, but you have the upgraded sensor, and they're going to port down all these features to the 945 LTE because it did come out like 6 months ago. So you're going to get the full feature set. You just won't have the touch screen, a bigger screen, simple things like that. So all those things said, in summary, the 255 and the 955 are huge releases. They are offering primarily a much bigger screen, which makes functionality, the multi-band GPS, most definitely the wellness, recovery, and training status aspects are all improving. The training readiness, heart rate variability tracking, and the morning report are significant increases in both the physiological nature of your wellness and recovery and the training nature of preparedness with facing the next hard workout. All that, and that's pretty much it. It's a Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.